Sure,
So,
sure.
good
Hey,
luck.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, William. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Glad to address this global audience. So, you know, one student wrote cloud everywhere on his paper. The teacher came and asked that student, what is this? Why have you written cloud everywhere? I mean, all across the paper. I think the student said, my father said, uh, the answer is the cloud. What is the question? Right? That's the kind of situation we live in. Everything has been cloud, and probably the overused word. And I happen to start my career during the virtualization time about 2 decades back, and grow up along with the cloud transformation. The VMware version 1.0, and I've done a couple of large scale transformation, got to be part of it from various aspects of it. And it's always glad to share experience with people. And how many of you can relate to the picture here, the S3 bucket breach, right? It always happens, right? In the private cloud space, at least it used to remain within the premises. Now the entire world comes to know about it, including when it happens with Amazon and others. So I know I'm trying to keep it a little, very interactive. That's how I would like it to be. And I'm also a Toastmaster. So uh, the founder of Toastmaster has said, you learn better when you are relaxed, and we are at your lighter side. Okay. With that, let me move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about me, and I have been passionate about technology, anything related to technology, and especially in the cloud space. And we live in interesting times now, right? There is a lot of transformation we are going through, and day in and day out we have to adapt to it. And the technology always humbles us with the kind of the rapidly it is catching up, and also the kind of impact it is able to create, especially in these pandemic times, right? Yesterday, we reached out a goal of 100 crore Indians were vaccinated. Okay, so that's a huge number, and I'm sure as technologists, all of us can be proud of it. Because technology played a major role in terms of supply chain, distribution, analytics, and the strategy of it, right? And such great things are possible only through technology. And uh, I share, I do similar sessions for IT executives. There is an executive education program called Great Learning, where I mentor IT executives on Azure, DevOps, and other things. And I'm a half marathoner. I don't know whether there is something called as half marathon in other parts of the world, but here, we do a 21 kilometers. I started doing it uh, pre-pandemic times, and still continuing to do it. So, and one pandemic habit I picked up is, I take bath before sleep these days. Okay, uh, get up, freshen up, and then start working. And somehow I have gotten into that habit. Probably, when we are talking, you can share your pandemic habits as well. You can reach out to me at WhatsApp, JP, and in Twitter, and I will be glad to interact. A lot of gratitude for William, Ben, for setting this up and setting this stage for for speakers, and giving an opportunity for people to share. And special thanks to Constantin, Coach Klein. He has been very patient with me, and he followed up very diligently, and also offered me a lot of feedback. Kosha, pleasure to know you, and I appreciate all the time and effort you spent with us. And I have, crowdsourced a lot of pictures, and the credits are due to the authors. And I have been. It's always good to see use a lot of memes and cartoons, and all the credits are due to them. Okay. And moving on to this one, the business landscape, right? I'm going to I have been working on a lot of transformations, cloud transformations, um, and to cloud in also multi-cloud as well, right? Azure, AWS, and others. But I'll be picking up one specific case and talk about in detail. I'll be anonymizing some of these details, due to confidentiality and other things. Okay, so the one of these large scale transformations, it's for an enterprise software company, about few $1 billion in revenue. The company had multiple portfolio of products, starting from legacy software to modern systems, and various mergers and acquisitions. I'm sure it sounds like a lot of companies out there, right? The businesses grow faster, especially software businesses, and uh, and most of the business believe mergers and acquisitions are the way to go, right? And we get into the business rigmaroles, chasing quarterly revenues, and we don't a lot of the companies don't take the step to integrate it well or consolidate them well, right? They remain separate entities. And also on top of this, we also have this the challenge of modernization, and also cloud comes into picture. So this is a very similar company, and wanted to modernize their infrastructure, and at the same time have it move it stage wise, right, from one stage to other. And also, like any business or any thriving business, there are challenges in growing gracefully. So that's when the wanted to take a step back, consolidate, and then accelerate forward. And talking about the technology landscape, have been majorly on-premise, and had all the challenges which comes with this mergers and acquisitions, right? Shadow IT, uh, every product team has their own data centers, and also all these companies are all global, right? There was an acquisition from Europe, one in US, and so on. So they had their bigger data centers over there, and also there were also a lot of data room, uh, which were hosting the local community. So the hardware sprawl was there, and the technology stack was also very diverse. The open stack was there for a hybrid cloud, and that has been quite a phenomenon for some time, right? Uh, were acted as a bridge from virtualization to moving to a private cloud, and then wanted to adopt a cloud first approach. um, I remember in one of the cases, during one of the DR exercises, I have to manage the data center from India to the data center was in Houston, right? So we have to bring up from Bangalore, and when people have to be evacuated from the Houston data center, only the one data center manager was there, whom we have to help him to take all those tapes and then fly out to another location in Colorado Hills. So that's the kind of DR practices which were in place. However, the business was working. The machine was operational, but it was not scaling up. That has been the challenge because of all these uh, all these hardware sprawl and requirement for modernization. So I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this, right? Uh, on one end, we worry about the cloud. We don't want to have cloud lock-in. We want to have multi-cloud and other things. Whereas the legacy hardware technical debt is something which always, um, which is always on us, right? What we call it as a shiny object syndrome. So one of the design principles or the modernization principles I recommend, and I always keep as a guiding principle for me, is that keeping things simple and doing some of the basic things right. Always, we want to implement the latest software, but we don't have bandwidth to. I mean, it happens in all the teams and companies, right? The fundamentals we miss out. So it is always important to keep the fundamentals and what is the core principle in place, and then take it from there. So that is one of the guiding principle even for this project as well. Um, Moving to the next one. This is the cloud transformation maturity model. Okay, it is a very sequential model because it goes through each of the stages, right? The project stage, foundation stage, migration stage, and then optimization stage. And one of the usual aspects what we do is the CCOE, setting up the CCOE portion of it, right? What you call as a cloud center of excellence. This has been the industry now. We also had a team because such a nuclear focused teams helps to incubate the technologies, and it can distribute it to all the teams over a period of time. I will talk about what are all the right practices of setting up a CCOE, okay, or some of the challenges we also internally face. But overall, the CCOE model is, though it is not the perfect model in place, but it definitely helps to incubate at the initial times, okay, especially if the adoption is new and we want to have focused teams. Okay, and we also set up a CCOE, and then it went through the other the foundation stages until it reached the migration factory. So this becomes this is the where all the activity happens, especially if you're looking at um, a consolidation from a smaller team to a bigger team. And we had a task force with the people all across the teams, and then executed it. And the all the think tank work, all the strategizing work happens in the CCOE, and the execution happens in the migration factory. Okay, and what you want to call it as an operations or other activities, and then it gets handed over to the DevOps teams here. Okay, and then it becomes a continuous improvement activity. Although also another aspect is that even this CCOE also has to go through a continuous improvement process, uh, because all the processes are evolving, and there is no specific standard as such, right? You start with some of the basics, and it is good that we start with the basics and then move it all across the spectrum. Okay, and it gets handed over migration factory, and then again it comes back and then gets feedbacks into it. The advantage of setting up this migration factory is that, especially as we are talking about IT as a business center, right? All the product teams we want, uh, internally we wanted to build them. Okay, this many servers, this much we have migrated, and this is your show back or cost recovery models. So where by using a migration factory, as people are focused only on doing the migrations, we were able to come up with the cost per server or cost per database kind of a migration model. Okay, for example, if it is a SQL database, and the CCOE will give recommendations. Okay, so this will go to a SQL Server managed instance model, and this is good for a SQL Server virtual machine, depending on the customer's requirement. And we came up with the tariff, okay, using which the product teams were able to use that, and that also helped to sustain the migration factory. So we were able to see that how much is the cost and how much is apportioned across the business unit. So that is one of the the fantastic what to say model we had in place, which helped us to show back to the business on how much of value we are creating, and especially in terms of dollar value, right? At least how much is cost is being recovered by doing these migrations, in addition to the cloud cost and other billing aspects of it. I think let me take a stop here. Any questions, thoughts?
So far, no questions.
Okay, super. And next is, we looked into the application modernization, uh, or of course, when we say application modernization, it involves the infrastructure modernization as well. So these are all this is the industry standard way of looking at it, right? Rehost, the 6 Rs, rehost, replatform, and so on, right? The rehost is usually the lift and shift kind of a model. Just move it as it is. And of course, see, even though this is probably the easiest way to do it or the non-controversial way to do it, so what happens is once we move as it is, whatever has been the problems with the systems, we are moving all those things to the cloud. Okay. And as we all know, that not all the systems or all the applications are built for cloud, isn't it? So the same thing, you just move it across along with the same hardware, and then it creates a lot of challenges. Of course, it definitely helps to make the progress. How many applications have we moved? Okay, we have so many number of applications moved, or so many number of SQL servers moved. So next is on the re-platform. Okay, identify a new platform. Maybe it is, though it may not be in a lot of classes. It may be an OS platform or an application platform. And when it comes to databases, probably it may also, especially here, we can also look at whether we want to move to a SQL server as an infrastructure as a service or as a platform as a service. Not necessarily we have to do a one-to-one migration. Okay. And SQL, especially in Azure, since this audience more towards the Microsoft and solutions, especially in Azure, we have managed SQL instances. That's something which we can also explore. And those kinds of creativity is what is really going to unlock the value. And also one thing what I have seen is that when we are even to serverless also, some of these architect looking at keeping an open mind on the architecture definitely helps. And that's where the uh, existing workforce can also stretch themselves for and create a creative tension in the system, right? um, One thing, we will talk about the selective resourcing part of it, right? Sometimes in the current team or in the current company, we may not have the required resources or the expertise. We bring in people from outside. Sometimes we work as consultant outside. And it's also important the existing experts or professional, their skills get leveraged, and extend, stretch, and look at these options. That's where the value of such large scale transformations gets unlocked. And also it is not a one time exercise, right? The technology continues to keep evolving. So and there are two strategies. One is currently move as is, and then go and probably re-architect or refactor it once you move to the cloud. The second approach is wherever possible, just to re-architect and then get some smaller changes, right? Rather than putting it one SQL server in a VM and moving the same to the cloud, look at how we can move it to the managed instance. So those kinds of initiatives or calculated risk we were able to take. This definitely helped in terms of getting a lot of productive outcomes for the company. One, the workforce get closely engaged. Okay, even the existing professionals as well, they also continue to learn. And second one, we create a culture of stretching. Okay, doing things on the go and execution. Right, that's the second thing. Third one is on the ensuring that we are up to date on these technologies, and also we can have a culture of continuously changing or continuously upgrading the systems. Okay, and repurchase. Some of the licenses needs to be contracts needs to be negotiated for the new model, right? As we all know, Microsoft offers a hybrid benefit, right? We will be able to take the existing licenses and move it to the cloud. And a lot of other companies are also cloud providers, and even applications are also offering a cloud or SaaS friendly models. Okay, uh, refactor or re-architect. I think we have discussed this enough, right? Where sometimes we have to move to containers and other features, and uh, some of the things what I have seen when it comes to modernization is that just by taking the same code and then putting it there out in a container will work, right? No, it doesn't work that way. And I'm sure all of us have seen it that way, right? It and there is no point just moving it there and calling it sassified, or we are operating in a cloud. So that refactoring, re-architecting needs to be uh, seen. And also it is good to confront the facts yearly. So if it is not going to work, it is not going to work, and that required a lot of assertiveness, and also a communication and negotiation in interacting with the application teams, right? To articulate these things, what will work in the cloud. And yes, as a migration team, as a transformation team, yes, it's all good things to move it as it is and then show the numbers. But eventually, it's also important we look at it from a sustenance perspective and a performance perspective. Okay, and especially if the application happens to be an end user facing application and a business application, we have seen that this has caused a lot of challenges after going into production. Okay, and we continue to we are just pushing the problem for a later date, and we are really not solving the problem. So these are all some of the challenges, are also opportunities for businesses to move forward, right? And it required not just the technology part of it. It required a lot of relationships with the various teams, and the transparent communication, and the leadership support to have such honest communication on what will work and what can be done. And I believe if you are able to articulate those aspects, the probabilities and the experience of such migrations or modernization projects are have been great. Fifth and sixth options are retire and retain, and this is a lot of companies are getting an opportunity to clean the house, right? Some of these applications could have been sunsetted. Servers can be sunsetted. I mean, it is another thing, a lot of value in terms of downsizing data centers and others. Retain is keep it as it is. Sometimes if it is not viable, or when we have these conversation, that's where all these options get explored. And also it requires a lot of transparent communication on why it is not happening. That's where uh, in I have it has helped me to validate my thought process that being a consultant or being a professional, especially in these times, is we require hard technical skills, and we also need a lot more communication and negotiation skills for success of these or such projects. Uh, so moving on to the next one, the approach and the execution part of it. So obviously we wanted to have a hybrid architecture, and uh, not fully integrated, because the cloud bursting and other features comes into uh, picture only when we have a business case in place. And also the application architecture also needs to be designed in a way that it could burst seamlessly. However, we selectively sassified those applications. It went in phase wise, and there was a pilot done. Then it went to the staging and it was tested, and then we grouped together similar applications or similar databases, and then it was done. So there was a high level architecture, and there was various low level architectures defined, and they were modernized. And SaaSification of the products, not for just it has to be moved to cloud. So we try to do it in its real sense. Initially we also had a lot of challenges in terms of or challenges or learnings by just moving it to cloud and praying that it works. But later we said that okay, this is not the way to go, it's not working, let's look at selectively choosing these applications and then moving them to cloud. And selective sourcing, this is where it becomes important. How we built the teams. There were consultant teams who were bringing in some specific expertise, especially in the initial days, in terms of some of the serverless, Terraform, and other migration methodologies. And over a period of time, it was internal. So the employees were trained, and there were budding, and then they were on their own. They were doing it from the migration factory perspective, and the migration factory itself was seasoned to become well-oiled machine. And over a period of time, we managed to run it very well with all the it was able to run itself as a business center. There was a rate card or a tariff card on what kind of migrations you want, and then it will goes to the migration factory based on and it does those migrations on the best practices, and it moves to production. So internally we were able to run it as a unit on its own. And of course the CCOE was the one which was spreading the culture and also the best practices all across the organization. So yeah, I think this explains, right, what happens when we just go ahead and implement a new technology or a new service. Just because it is available in AWS or Azure, um, let's not go and use it. Let's see that it goes through a thorough process of how it applies to us, and then take it from there. Also at the same time, it is also important we keep our options open and explore them. And next, on the challenges, what you faced. First one, as always, in terms of the mindset of the teams coming along, right? As employees, as role takers, operations teams comes with their own challenges. The development team, database guys, and others. So I believe the leadership's guidance and support is what helps us all stay together, work together, and that is important, especially in for the transformation of these projects. So also, all the more important, what this new cloud technologies has opened up is that collaboration and the need to have a lot of honest communication. Um, if we remember previously, we used to have these changes, say once in 3 months or so, right? There will be a major change. We have as teams, we all look forward to it. The same, if it is minor change, it may not be to that level, at least at a smaller level. Nowadays, with the DevOps culture, we do see changes and almost on a daily basis, right? We have all learned to live with that uncertainty. So it becomes, all the more important to have honest, transparent communication and also teamwork. Okay, that is something which we have to get it built, over a period of time, and that impacted in the outcomes as well. And also it also creates a lot of creative tension in the system, because now we are we get exposed to both the dev and ops teams, right? All the aspects of it. So we have to start looking at solutions in from all the angles. The same, each one of us become vulnerable, right? Whether it is with the server scalability or with the code, or how the transactions are performing. And the North Star is the customer delight. So it brought each one of us together as a team in doing all these transformations. And the workload migration and then executions. So there will be a lot of use cases, as we discussed, right? All those 6 sets. In addition to that, add the complexity of so many options at the cloud side, and even the previously we used to have only one. We worry only about the SQL database versions, right? And Microsoft also made it easier, maybe standard, enterprise, and others. Now we have various options at the VM level. Also, we have IaaS, PaaS, and so on, and whatnot. There are so many permutations and combinations. And what helped us to, and that's definitely a very big challenge. We can easily lose track of all these things um, very easily. So what helped us is to have a tariff, standardize across the organization. So these are all going to be the architects standards. This is where these are all the offerings we are going to have, and this is how the development environment is going to be. And we hardened all those things on the cloud side, and the tariff was published. And similarly for the migration as well. So we had some standard way of recommendations. So this is the qualifying criteria. So initially we conduct such workshops with each of the product teams, get all their inventory, identify these are all our recommendations where we see, and these are all the standards. That's how it will take it forward. That made it life a lot easier. And as we also had the leadership commitment, they helped us to drive it all across. And also we also took a very realistic approach. So we will ensure there is minimal disruption to the business or revenues. Okay, so excuse me. So that also helped us to drive that point well. And the third point is keeping it simple, the honest and transparent. We never wanted to complicate things. The keeping it simple all across was the the mantra. Okay, so so the we had two parts. One was on the the AWS was there, and Azure was the options. Another thing was they were using it Google Cloud for AAML. So the strategy was to have a truly multi-cloud setup, not because one reason was that uh, obviously to avoid the cloud lock-in. Another strategy was to use the cloud for its merits. Okay, and we all know Azure is a good platform, is a Microsoft native platform, and so this was a very diverse shop with a lot of open source workloads and Microsoft workloads as well. So we had Azure for those perspectives, and there were some of the products used AI and ML algorithms. So that's where, excuse me, just a moment. So that's where it became important for us to use Google Cloud as well. And AWS has been there for quite some time. So that's where the majority of the servers were SQL servers, and we use those for the migrations. And the important decision, as I said, was to how to consolidate it, whether to use it as an IaaS or PaaS platforms, and database becomes an important aspect in terms of in terms of the application performance and the end user satisfaction. That becomes one of the benchmark, uh, and we always measured the how the end user feels, because there were some of the we were also hosting some of the end customers data as well, and operating them. And there was a professional services division which was using significant amount of infrastructure needs to be consolidated. And then there was when it came to databases, the guideline was that cloud first approach we took. Okay, so look at whether it can be moved to cloud, and then start evaluating other options, because as we all know, cloud definitely brings in a lot of advantages in terms of operational cost and utilization, especially if you are running applications. There is nothing like in terms of scalability and other things. Okay, so when it comes to SQL, this was the default choice, the SQL Server on virtual machines for lift and shift kind of machines. Create a VM, move it across. Then we also explored these managed instances as well. So though initially there were a lot of reluctance on using this, but we did a POC, and we got a more group of databases to this managed instances. And after we showcased that, the confidence increased, and there are a lot of uh, product teams which move towards these models. Okay, the platform as a service and then the software as a service model. And what it required was that building those confidence and working internally, and being a the project team, we also have to initially we focused on building such use cases. Okay, the parameters were very clearly set. Baseline the existing performance of the application or the databases. Since we operate in that old legacy model, there was a dedicated database team who was managing various databases, and they usually wanted to have this moved as it is. Okay, so we have to group all the application teams and the support teams together. So we set up standard parameters to measure after the migration, after it is getting moved to the cloud or wherever it is. So standardize those application parameters or what the end user is getting, end user is seeing in terms of response time and so on across the globe. So those details were captured and stored, and it was signed off with the application teams. These are all things, and we also agreed to better those parameters when it gets moved to cloud. So that helped to build confidence with all these product teams after it was moved to cloud. I know that's the challenge we took, and since we agreed to it upfront, there were a lot of openness in terms of the architecture flexibility. How it will be, the change of architecture or re-architecting that. And I believe that is one of the important aspect of the building that confidence with the application team, backed by data, and also with the case studies and how benchmarking some of these performances in real time. That helped a lot in terms of running this project smoothly. And these are all the some of the ways which we used SQL Server management services, exporting the data and then importing it. This is one model we used, and then can use the SQL Azure migration wizard, and also management services using Visual Studio database project. And there are various ways to do it, and also we also looked at building some of these high availability architectures as well, and that definitely brought in a lot of confidence to the application teams when we are able to do it real time. In addition to this, we leveraged a lot of CDN and some of these advantages cloud brings, right? By globally distributing the workload. And nowadays the DR happens only what have when an availability zone goes down and when a server goes down, things like that. So eventually, what happened is, once we are about 18 months to 24 months onto the project, so those kinds of advanced feature in terms of data was brought in, and also consolidation as well. And another people related aspect what we worked on is that we really worked on the T-shaped skills for architects, even for the employees. If someone is a database analyst, he'll be having deeper knowledge in the database migrations and application performance. But he will, we also rolled out training programs for all the employees on how the application needs to be architected, and also some of the storage aspects of it, at least the required understanding to ensure the database performance. That really helped in building the confidence of the existing employees, and over a period of time they came forward and started contributing in advancing some of the cloud features or projects to the next level. And they become more intuitive in contributing to the migration factory, or coming up with the performances of these databases. And once it is moved to the cloud, and we also rolled out a lot of re-architecture projects. Some of the product groups we have to move as is, not everything we were able to re-architect and move. So all these things, once after it has been moved to cloud, these were the went through a lot of overhaul or performance enhancements. So any thoughts, questions here or so far?
No questions so far at all. No.
Sure.
You also have 15 minutes left.
Sure. And the project outcomes, of course, we were able to build a truly or a working hybrid model, okay, with multiple cloud support, okay, and in an enjoyable, relatively enjoyable way. I know some of these can be very rough because there are various stakeholders, time pressures, and things not working up to the expectations. So because of all these best practices, we were able to achieve a hybrid multi-cloud architecture in a relatively seamless way. Of course, it involved a lot of work and trial and error and iterations. And there is a working business and cloud model, and I believe this is very important. And keeping this as a goal makes it realistic. Okay, so end of the day, if you're truly able to look at from the business's perspective, empathize with their goals, their objectives, at the excuse me. At the same time, we are able to achieve the technology goals of it. Definitely we have seen that to be a success. Also, at the same time, we also took confidence of the existing workforce and trained them to perform. That I believe helped in reducing a lot of friction, and in turn they started contributing. Of course, this goes through a lot of stages, right? Each one of these stages requires a lot of skills. We need to have a strong project management and various teams working together. There are various moving parts, but finally, having a working business and cloud model, if you keep it as an objective, then it is definitely achievable. Also, the reason why I want to emphasize this is that not to have a lot of trying to do a lot of fancy things just because it is the latest or the cloud provider introduces it. Okay, we had a very strong process in place to do what is required, and at the same time keep it simple. Okay, and a seamless transition. This is when I say seamless, of course it is very realistically seamless with in terms of downtimes, in terms of continuity and other things. But we were able to achieve that in most of these projects, and also able to show them in the right way, and not to just be stringent on only one approach, have options and take it forward accordingly. Learnings, I think we discussed all these learnings all along the journey. Keeping it simple and operational helps, and it's a difficult journey, but a very important and necessary journey. And taking care of the it's always about balancing between the business and people objectives, right? And hybrid teams in addition to hybrid clouds. So one thing which is changing is that the T shape is changing. Previously, all of us used to have that specific expertise in one specific area. Even that itself is becoming more specialized nowadays. Also, it also becoming important. Each of the teams are able to understand the how the cloud works, cloud offering works, right? And on all these new dimensions, how to architects applications or databases and such solutions in the cloud. And we continuously articulated this with all the teams. That helped in creating a lot better understanding amongst the workforce and then adoption. So I'll speak about one of these aspects in detail. Okay, the lift and shift of servers without shifting those mindsets, right? So usually we see that the lift and shift of servers to be the what to say, very practical way to move to cloud. Okay, yes, move it as it is to the cloud and let it operate from there. As we see that the value, the initial cost wins, lower upfront effort, time to learn and plan for V2. All these things are good, but the lift and shift, the value of it, reduces over a period of time, and the problems will increase from there. Okay, and whereas as we see here, the challenges become more. Okay, as we pursue continuous lift and shift. So this is something which we have to be aware of, especially when we are doing a lift and shift of these migrations. It's the easiest way, but it has its own challenges as well. Okay. And next is building a cloud center of excellence the right way. I'm sure a lot of companies, we would have seen it, the way teams are getting built, right? So first we go with the low hanging fruits, right, of migration, and then all the dead and legacy systems and culture remain the same. Okay. Okay, so all the legacy systems remain the same. I mean, these are all some of these things which you need to be aware of so that we build these teams in the right way. So it's important. We have to be aware of it. Next one is the asteroid form. So all the old systems remain as it is, and we will have a cloud circling around it, around that stone or that forest. Okay, only peripheral it will keep coming up, and we also have some 2 or 3 clouds in place, because they offer a lot of price advantages and they have a strong sales team. This is something which we also want to avoid. But I'm also cognizant of the fact. But this is how these adoptions or some of the projects start in companies. But it is important. The end state is very important, and we are cognizant of this. And next one is the donut hole kind of model, where we will have isolated central cloud team which will just be doing its own work, and they are not empowered, or they don't get into the regular operations of it. The other teams continue to operate as it is, and there is one separate cloud team which continues to do its own way, implementing all the latest features. Okay, so the ideal way is to have it like the petri dish model. Okay, where you have a cloud center of excellence which continues to spread its ways, continues to works with the teams, and it tries to impact or transforms all the culture of the organizations, or over a period of time there is a transparency and openness in moving to the cloud model, or where we are able to right size and adopt these cloud technologies. So this will be the right way of doing it, and I am sure all our teams would as representing various teams, would like to have this model in place. As we all know, cloud is a horizontal. It offers something for everyone, and it is important that we use that in our own domains. Okay. And we discussed a lot about it. Just thought of sharing this. Retrain and retrain or retain the existing talent. Okay, so we always continue to look for organization, look for some ninja programmers and experts. Of course, it creates a momentary uh, momentary blip in the salaries and other things, but and that delays a lot of projects, a lot of adoption. So it's important we also work on empathizing with the existing talent and bringing up to certain level, and because they already know how the application works, databases work, and over a period of time they will be add this layer, the cloud layer, to the infrastructure or the IT as such. Okay. So with that, to summarize, I think just to look into the basics, keeping it simple helped us, and I'm sure it will help everyone. And also having the uh, honest communication, and along with the empathizing the teams, bringing all these together. I'm sure it is easily said, but it requires the leadership commitment to take it from there, and also implement, keeping the options open about these features, IaaS, SaaS, and other things is what helped us. Sure, if we have any questions, I would be glad to share my views on that.
So far, there's been no questions. Just taking a look. Oh, no, actually, from Kostya. Wonderful. Did you lose people on this journey? Did you take specific actions to avoid that? I still struggle with including everyone in this change and overcoming obstacles.
Of course, definitely. See, definitely people will leave. There were two sets of people who were leaving. One, people who wanted to adapt it faster, right? And they who people who chase waves or shiny object syndrome, right? So they got equipped to cloud first, and they were leaving because they were getting outside market opportunity. They want to explore that. And second one were the people who were not able to cope up with these changes in the initial days, right? When we introduced these projects and cloud was introduced. So there were also leaving. But this, we have to accept that as that is part of the change. And once we start rolling, start working with people and taking care of them and empowered them to drive some of these changes, things were came under control, and we managed to retain and nurture the existing talent.
Yeah!